I tried my hand at making pasta with a cream sauce. It's homemade, so make sure to enjoy it while it's still warm. However, the dish she placed before us had a foul odor. It didn't smell appetizing at all, and I hesitated to take a bite. Aren't you going to eat it? Don't you like my cooking? Are you just trying to make things difficult for me? Holly's accusatory tone left me baffled, as if she was determined to paint me as the villain. When she momentarily left the table, I discreetly swapped my plate with my son Aiden's. I hoped my concerns were misplaced. As I slid my plate over, silently praying, Aiden took a hearty bite without a second thought, but as soon as he did, he began foaming at the mouth and collapsed backward. Aiden, why did he collapse? What happened? I immediately realized that Holly had deliberately tampered with my plate, even before she could pretend to be confused. Seeing her reaction, I resolved to get back at her. My name is Susan, and I turned 62 this year. When Aiden got married, it was just my husband and me left in our now quiet house. I missed the hustle and bustle. One day, during a conversation about his married life, Aiden suddenly looked troubled and brought up an issue. The truth is, my wife's cooking isn't very good. What are you saying? You should be grateful that someone is cooking for you. I really am, but I just can't eat it. Initially, I scolded Aiden for complaining about homemade food. He had never been a picky eater and had always enjoyed his meals, so it was odd to hear him say this. Well then, why don't you and Holly come over for dinner sometime? Really? Thanks, Mom. Seeing his face light up, I thought it wouldn't hurt to spend some time together. I made the offer casually, hoping to build a good relationship with Holly, but what unfolded was far beyond anything I could have imagined. A few days later, Aiden and Holly joined us for dinner. My husband and I enjoyed the lively conversation at the table without any notable incidents. I hope you like the food, Holly. It's delicious. I'm glad, thank you. Aiden always talks about how good his mom's cooking is. I'm so jealous he has such a skilled cook for a mother. I couldn't help but blush at Holly's compliment. Then she continued. I brought a dish as a gift for you as well. She placed a large container in the center of the table. Holly, what did you make for us? It's a French dish called quiche. Haven't you heard of it? With a confident air, Holly opened the container, revealing its contents. Inside was something that resembled a cross between an omelette and a pie, but the moment it was uncovered, a horrid smell filled the room, making me wince. The surface was burnt, while the inside was a gooey, undercooked mess with a fishy odor. It's easy to make, you just mix the dough and bake it. Really, should we heat it up again? No need, it's fine cold. With no other choice, I reluctantly picked up my chopsticks. The dough looked undercooked, and its powdery texture made me hesitate. My husband, watching closely, set his chopsticks down without taking a bite. Aiden, too, stayed silent and didn't touch his food. Oddly enough, Holly didn't try it either. Aren't you going to eat, mother-in-law? I'm sorry, but it seems a bit undercooked. Should we reheat it? Holly's face clouded at my response. I tried to be careful with my words, but it was clear she wasn't pleased. Forget it. She slammed the container onto the table. I didn't expect to be treated like this just for bringing a dish. Do you think you can get away with anything just because you're good at cooking? Holly, calm down. Before you criticize Mom, maybe you should try it yourself. It's so easy to make that I don't need to taste it. Why aren't you eating it? How can you serve food without tasting it first? Just give it a try. Though I didn't mean to offend, it was clear I had. I tried to defuse the tension, but Holly, still fuming, stormed out. Aiden apologized before hurrying after her. In the silence that followed, I held my head in my hands. At this rate, she's going to think I'm deliberately making things difficult. I sighed and glanced at my husband. The container sat untouched, and I wondered what to do next. I don't consider myself an exceptional cook, just an average one. I genuinely want to resolve this peacefully. I could suggest Aiden cook for himself, but that might bruise Holly's pride. Despite him being my son, it's not my place to interfere in their marriage. After discussing it with my husband, we decided to step back and avoid getting too involved. But since then, Holly began visiting more frequently. Mother-in-law, could you please make lunch and pack dinner for Aiden to take home? The next day, Holly came alone. Without Aiden, she spread empty containers across the table and asked me to prepare lunch and dinner for them. taken aback by her sudden request. I asked if something was wrong. Aiden seems to prefer your cooking, so I thought it would be better if you made our meals from now on. Holly, that's not really fair. How about we cook together instead? No, you'll just make that disgusted face again. You're only making things harder for me. Her resolute tone left me at a loss for words. Even if I tried to explain that wasn't my intention, she wouldn't listen. In her mind, I was already the bad mother-in-law. While I didn't mind cooking, the idea of doing it every day for someone who disliked me so much was disheartening. I considered teaching her some simple recipes, but she refused even that. You're good at cooking, so just handle it for us, and don't forget about tomorrow's meal too. Despite my efforts to persuade Holly, she only became more demanding as time went on. On days when I refused, she would simply buy prepared food from the grocery store. Aiden didn't seem to mind and never complained, which only fueled Holly's frustration. She began to grumble about him eating at our place instead. Aiden was spoiled by you, wasn't he? Now he just gobbles up store-bought food. He's always loved eating, but he barely touches anything I make. It feels like he's doing it just to hurt my feelings. I'm not so sure about that. Soon, Holly started showing up at our house almost daily around lunchtime, relying on me for her meals and Aiden's dinners. Eventually, she even demanded that I prepare Aiden's lunch and deliver it in the mornings, leaving me at a loss. I spoke with Aiden, asking him to address Holly's constant visits, but instead, he began giving me money to cover their meals, avoiding the issue of her cooking altogether. If you're willing to spend that much money, why not have Holly learn to cook? I suggested, but Holly refused, claiming it hurt her feelings and wouldn't listen. This led to yet another conflict when Holly discovered Aiden was giving me money for the food. Why are you paying your mother? Is this some kind of allowance? You didn't tell me about this. It's because you're making my mom cook for us. What's wrong with paying for our meals? It's because you won't eat what I cook. I had no other choice. Despite several attempts to resolve the issue, Holly wouldn't budge. She insisted that not eating her cooking was a form of harassment and believed we were conspiring against her. Eventually, I decided to stop cooking for them altogether. While this seemed to resolve the issue, Holly remained dissatisfied. I had no choice but to step back and leave them to work things out on their own. About 2 or 3 weeks later, Holly showed up at our house again on a quiet afternoon. I braced myself as I greeted her at the door, but this time, Aiden was with her. I want you to teach me how to cook. She had finally come around. Please, just this once. Well, if that's the case, I'll help her, I said, relieved that we had reached a positive resolution. I led them to the kitchen, pleased to see Holly more motivated than before. She even brought her own ingredients, which seemed like a good sign. But then, to my surprise, she insisted that I leave the kitchen. When I tried to help, Holly kicked both Aiden and me out of the kitchen. We exchanged worried glances, but Holly insisted, I can't concentrate if I'm not alone, and refused to listen. After only a few minutes, she called us back into the living room, presenting a plate of pasta she'd made. It seemed too short a time to prepare pasta, so I attempted to check the kitchen, but Holly stopped me. Mother-in-law, what's wrong? Please, try it while it's still warm. Are you sure everything went smoothly? Did you find the pots and utensils? It was fine, so just enjoy my homemade pasta while it's hot. The pasta with cream sauce didn't look as unappetizing as before, but as I mixed it with my fork, I noticed something strange in the white sauce. At first, I thought it was bits of roux, but it had an odd smell, like air freshener. Aiden, sitting next to me, hesitantly took a bite. To my surprise, his face lit up. It's delicious, he exclaimed, clearly impressed. Wow, Holly, this is really good. You've gotten the hang of this. I always cook properly. See, even my mother-in-law can't refuse it. Mom, it's just normal pasta. It's fine. Despite Aiden's offhand comment, which would usually irritate Holly, she seemed unfazed and kept urging me to eat. However, the more I stirred the pasta, the stronger the strange odor became, making me hesitant. Why won't you eat it? Are you just trying to mess with me? That's not it, At that moment, Holly's phone rang. She quickly excused herself, leaving the room to take the call. Seizing the opportunity, I asked Aiden to swap our plates. Eager for seconds, he started eating my portion, but moments later, he collapsed, foaming at the mouth. I screamed in panic. What happened? Why did Aiden collapse? Holly rushed back into the room, looking alarmed as I frantically called for an ambulance. She knelt beside Aiden, bewildered. What happened to Aiden? Aiden was rushed to the hospital and had his stomach pumped. My husband joined me there, and we finally breathed a sigh of relief when we saw Aiden resting on the hospital bed. But before we could voice our concern, Holly blurted out, "Why? Why did Aiden collapse? How come?" "Holly, please calm down. It should have been you. Did you force Aiden to eat it?" "What are you talking about, Holly? What did you do?" My husband and I pressed Holly for answers as she continued to accuse me and then said something shocking. "You insulted my cooking, so I thought I'd get back at you." "Get back at me?" "Yes, it's your fault that Aiden won't eat my food. He's always taken your side." "Neither Aiden nor I ever meant to hurt you, but I understand that we did." "Yes, you did. That's why I thought everything would be better if you weren't around." Holly had indeed put something foreign in the pasta she served me. The white residue turned out to be detergent. Thankfully, no serious harm was done, but things could have been far worse. Aiden might have ended up in a more critical condition. Aiden should have noticed the strong smell, but the situation had escalated beyond a simple cooking mishap. I couldn't stay silent any longer. "If you think it would be better if I weren't around, then you just needed to put more effort into your cooking. But as long as you're here, Aiden will always be on your side, won't he?" Holly's unapologetic and thoughtless response left me feeling defeated. My husband, too, shook his head in dismay, realizing Holly didn't grasp the seriousness of her actions. "That's enough, Holly, I need to speak with your parents." "What? Why? My parents have nothing to do with this." "Because talking to you isn't getting us anywhere." After Aiden's safe recovery and discharge from the hospital, we decided to involve Holly's parents. Although Holly was extremely reluctant, I reached out to her parents to explain the situation and arrange a meeting. "I am deeply sorry for the trouble our daughter has caused." "Oh no, it's my mother-in-law who should apologize." "That's right, my mother-in-law is the one at fault." Each time Holly spoke, her mother, Kate, gave her a stern look and made her bow her head. Kate's strict demeanor made me question Holly's behavior and attitude. "We'll cover the medical expenses. If there's anything else we can do to make amends, please let us know." "Stop it, I'm not paying any money." "Holly, can you explain why you did this?" "As I said at the hospital, it's because Aiden always sides with you." Holly continued to insist that I was provoking Aiden to mock her cooking, even blaming me for the need to take over cooking duties. Unable to tolerate her attitude any longer, I decided to show Kate a photograph to clarify the situation. "What is this?" "This is a dish Holly brought to our house. She said it's called quiche." "You served this awful thing to someone else?" Kate, visibly shaking, glared at Holly and began reprimanding her fiercely. Holly could only hang her head in silence as Kate's scolding continued unabated, leaving us no chance to intervene. Eventually, Holly confessed everything. She admitted that if Aiden continued to side with me, she would eventually be responsible for caring for me. In a bizarre twist of logic, she thought that by getting me hospitalized, she could avoid that responsibility. The irrationality of her reasoning was staggering. "I'm sorry, but I can't continue our marriage after something like this." "Why not? It's not my fault. You should have supported me instead of your mother." "Be quiet, you could be reported to the police for this." At the mention of the police, Holly turned pale. Though there were discussions about compensation and hospital fees, Kate promised to hold Holly accountable, preventing the situation from escalating further. Despite her childish behavior, Holly seemed despondent after Aiden told her, "I can't be with you anymore." I later discovered that Holly's parents, whom she claimed to have a strained relationship with, were actually professional chefs. Holly, who had been reprimanded for her unconventional cooking ideas, had begun experimenting freely after her marriage. Aiden informed me that her parents were furious with her for trying to undermine someone with her cooking, particularly her father, whom we hadn't met, was reportedly enraged and had begun a bridal training program, teaching Holly the basics of cooking at their home. This experience made me realize the importance of teaching my son basic household skills. Although Aiden appreciated having someone cook for him, he started preparing simple dishes on his own. He even asked me to teach him how to cook and often comes over so we can cook together. Interestingly, my husband also developed an interest in cooking. Now, the three of us enjoy cooking together, or sometimes I let them take over while I relax.